Welcome, families, to our second CF FamilyCon. We're so excited to have you all join us for this very special keynote and inside look, connections, and conversations about living with CF. On behalf of myself and my co-chair, Anna McFay Tyson, welcome, and we hope you enjoy CF FamilyCon 2019. I'd now like to pass things over to Elizabeth Amber to tell you all a little bit more about the inspiration behind the real conversations we'll be featuring today.
Thanks, Lynda. I'm so honored to be here. Like she said, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm 37 years old and living with CF. I'm an artist and writer living in Seattle right now. So for this keynote, we wanted to do something a little bit different. Often we highlight the stories surrounding the person with CF, from the journey, the rigors of compliance, the struggles and the victories. However, that isn't the whole story. And for every up and down along the way, there are people we may be related to or not, but whom we consider family, who support, observe, feed, encourage, advocate, and most of all, care for us. Without them, we would be truly lost. In this keynote, we wanted to give them a chance to share some of their stories with us, specifically asking what it's been like for them to walk with us and how CF has impacted their lives. We wanted to show what it looks like to sit down and ask intentional questions, what it might mean to remember certain events together, and to hear how we each have processed the feelings and observations we've had along the way. So we're going to be showing you 6 conversations in total. Each of the participants was generous enough to sit down in front of a camera and record these moments. We're so grateful for their honesty, candor, and love in doing yet another thing for us and the CF community. So first we're going to hear from Jacqueline and Sue, who live in New Jersey. Jacqueline has 2 kids with CF, John, who's 23 now, and Emily, who's 19. Both were diagnosed with CF late in 2010. So this conversation is with her and her best friend, Sue. And we start the conversation with Jacqueline talking about when they first met.
It's hard. My son was suffering from CF-related chronic pancreatitis. I remember a particular night. I was at the acting school, and she was too. We were both waiting for our daughters, and I got a phone call from my son's doctor, his GI doctor, and she basically told us there was nothing else they could do, and it was almost accepting of that his time was short at that point, and he was 16. I don't really remember that day much, but I remember her presence. And I remember her making me feel comforted in some way. I don't know how. And I don't really know how we connected at that point, but we did. And from that day on forward, she became an integral part of my life and of that care. And it's thank you. Just thank you.
Are you kidding? It's my honor. Shortly after that, because my daughter has a chronic illness also, and at the time she was carrying MRSA, if you remember.
Yeah.
The doctors said that Emily and Hannah could not be together.
Yeah.
And that was devastating for the girls. And Jackie and I came together to try and figure out a way that the girls could be in the same class together, to be in the same atmosphere together, because they had a lot of friends in common. So it wasn't just breaking them apart, it was breaking everything apart. And we were calling doctors, if you remember, we were calling doctors and saying, how can we do this? Because we can't, the disease is already denying them something. And through that, we just became each other's soldiers.
It was important to us. It was scary, though, too, because it was scary for both of us, because we didn't want to hurt our children and put them at risk. But at the same time, you have to constantly think of quality of life. And I think it's because both of our children have chronic illnesses that they've lived with all their lives. Even if my kids were late diagnosed, we've always been dealing with stuff So we have that really deep understanding of we have to keep them as safe as we can, but we can't keep them in a bubble either. So we try to work around and find the right parameters to do things. So when we put our heads together.
We also, I think, most of my friends, and Jackie will tell you the same thing. When you have children who are healthy, your friends don't understand why you are spending so much time and energy on your children. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to our relationship, we don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. If Jackie tells me she can't do something because John needs her, Emily needs her, or she just doesn't feel good herself because she's tired, because I know she's up all night doing John's IVs and his feeding tubes and whatever, I don't make her feel bad about it. Yeah. I have friends who have said to me when my daughter has just gotten out of the hospital, well, what do you mean you're canceling Saturday night? Well, my kid was just in the friggin' ICU. So I think we were a blessing for each other because we get it.
Our daughters have that too, that they have this judge-free zone, that when, Emily's not feeling well enough or Hannah's not feeling well, they never,
They don't have to make excuses. They don't have to lie about it. They don't have to pretend. Right. A lot of being chronically ill for the kids is pretending everything is okay. Because the last thing you want to be when you're a teenager is different.
Right.
So at least with their relationship, our relationship, it's like, let your hair down. We don't have to pretend anything, and it's just real.
Yeah, that's very true.
Just real. But the thing that I think people don't realize is that when your child is ill, and you spend so much time and energy taking care of them, one of the things that is so helpful that people don't even think of is, calling and saying, can I do something for you? For you. The focus is always on the child, and of course, our focus is always on the child. And, I'll always call Jack and say, how's John feeling today? How's Emily feeling today? But I also want to know how she's feeling today.
Right.
Because there's a lot of stress and and it's not just emotional, it's physical stress. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And people forget about the caregiver. They do.
And we really have been, both of us, we've given each other the attention that we deserve. And it's important to make time for yourself as a caregiver and as a friend too, and enjoy that time together. But I hear a lot of friends of mine in the CF community, a lot of CF moms and parents, where they say, I just don't have time. You have to make that time. You have to make that time. When John and Emily, but John in particular, was hospitalized for so long, and he, as all of you guys know, is that they're isolated and they can't leave the room. And I can, and I used to struggle with that. Why should I leave the room if they can't? And I would feel guilt about that. So let me just lock myself in there. And then I came to the realization that is not how to do it at all. So I would go and take a walk around. They're in Philadelphia. Take a little walk around Philadelphia. Take an hour to myself. Go down to the drugstore. Go down the shop. Bring him a pint of ice cream or something like that. But that time, I needed that time to myself, or else I think I really would have lost it. And that's really important. And then making that time for your friends and for yourself.
It doesn't make them better to deny yourself.
Yes.
I tell her all the time, you slow down. You have to rest. You have to take care of you. Because if you don't take care of you, who's going to take care of John and Emily? Of course we feel guilty about it, but on the other hand, we have to be somewhat refreshed to be able to deal with all the doctors and all the information and the pain and you know, the emotions that the kids are dealing with. You have to make sure that you refresh yourself.
When she called, we speak almost every day. Like, we speak about several times a week on the phone.
Sometimes more than once a day.
Yeah, exactly.
It depends on the day.
And it's that elephant in the room that you don't have to talk about sometimes. We can talk about the thunderstorm outside and not have to focus on that. But when we do want to talk about it, there's no, I don't know if the word shame is the right word, but it's like
you're not guarded.
You don't hold back. Yeah, you don't hold back.
You don't have to pretend that something is not wrong when clearly it is.
Yeah.
You know, and if you choose to talk about it, you do. And if you choose not to, that's okay. There's a million other things in the world you could talk about.
Anyway, and I love you.
I love you too.
Oh, my girl.
This is my girl.
I just love that. They're so honest and open about the struggle of being a caretaker. Lynda, how did that resonate with you as a mom of a CF kiddo?
It really resonated with me. A few things. It's really hard for me to take time for myself, and I feel like that's a big struggle for a lot of caretakers or caregivers for CF and parents. A lot of times I feel guilty about taking that time for myself. There's always so much to be done. You know, and I think we stay so busy, it's hard to just take that time and just make sure you do it. But it is really important. It's important that you do for sure. Another thing that Jackie was talking about was when she didn't want to like leave the hospital room. And for me, another part of that is I would worry about leaving the room. If I left, would I miss a doctor, an important time to have that conversation with them, or a nurse, or even when medication was being given and I wasn't there to check it, I would just get so anxious. So I wouldn't want to take that time away. So a couple of things we would do is when my husband would come in the evening time after work and bring my son, I would take that time. And then I felt comfortable to leave, you know, with many instructions on if the doctor came by to make sure. So I think it's hard, but I think like Jackie and Sue were saying, it's really important to do it. And I also feel like it's important for me to take the time with my other son. So I have two boys, and Patrick is 16 now, but when Kian was in the hospital a lot, it was hard to find time to make sure that we took care of time with him. And then another thing that resonated with me a lot is just that the mom to mom connection and how close they were. And locally, we got together with a few CF moms, which is awesome to have that support. But there's a few that I'm really close with that we talk and text just like that daily. So just listening to their story just really warmed my heart. It was just, I just loved it. And that support alone can really make a difference, you know, in my day.
Totally.
So now let's hear from a couple who made some hard decisions in making time for themselves, but they became a stronger couple. And we're going to let their story speak for itself. Here's Adam and Stacey, and they are from Philadelphia, and Adam is an adult with CF.
What do you think's been the most difficult part for us?
I think the most difficult part for any family member is not being able to have the answers. It took me a very long time to understand that there was only so much that I could do to take care of Adam, that I couldn't slip away from myself, that I just had to focus on what was the best well-being of myself. and what was the best well-being of Adam. And just to give it time and to not give up was probably one of the hardest parts of this journey together. It has taken a lot of patience, as Adam and I had to make a big decision in our life when we were previously married, that we needed to separate and divorce, and it was primarily due to focusing on our own health. I tried to do a lot to take care of him, and I started losing myself, and in return I was not able to provide the care, the needs that Adam needed. And when I say losing myself, I turn to the addiction of drugs and alcohol, primarily alcohol. I used the alcohol to numb out the pain of Adam's illness. I thought that it would be easier to drink than having to face the fear of losing Adam completely. And so for 2.5 years, we were in 1,700 miles apart from each other, but we stayed in contact, and we took that time to focus on us, and the hard work paid off for both of us. It's for one thing, it's him with CF, but also it takes a family to get through CF. And if we didn't have the strength and the love for each other and the dedication that we have towards one another, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I know that we both would not take those 2.5 years that we had apart back, because it made us stronger. It made him stronger to live on his own with CF before the lung transplant. And it made me stronger. It made me appreciate and love him even more today than I ever have.
So Stacy and I got divorced in September of 2016, and I moved back to Pennsylvania for 2 reasons. One, I didn't need oxygen in Pennsylvania because of the altitude, and 2, this is where I'm from, the central Pennsylvania area, and my family is here, so I had a lot of support. But what I learned from being alone was that you have to kind of suck it up and ask for help. I know a lot of friends with CF, and we're all have these giant egos, and we think we can't ask for help. We think it's a sign of weakness, when actually it's actually a sign of strength when we can reach out for help. And I've learned throughout that that there was times that I did ask for help. One was when I almost died in the winter of 2018. Sorry. At that point, I asked for Stacy, I asked for my mom, I asked for all these people. I couldn't have done any of it without them, but at the end of the day, I came out of all this knowing what I wanted out of life, where I wanted to be, and who I wanted to be with. So last October, Stacy and I decided that we were going to move back in together. And in February 13th of this year, she moved in. And so since she's been here, our relationship has been amazing. It's like 2 different people. Like,
we just really have opened up to each other, and it's a blessing in disguise. Unfortunately, what happens with CF, it's such a shame, and we wish that there was a cure for CF, but when something breaks you down so hard, it also can build you into such a better and more beautiful individual than you could ever imagine.
So tell me one of the times when you were the happiest about my CF journey.
The happiest time was when you were starting to live life on your own, and you found Attain Health, and you started focusing on yourself and building up your self-esteem. Not only that, but working out and starting to feel really good to prepare yourself for the lung transplant. And then the happiest was on August 23rd of 2018, when I got the final call from Adam stating that he was receiving a double set of lungs, and waiting that long journey until I finally got the text message from Adam that the surgery was successful, and the first time that I was able to hear him say hello to me with a new set of lungs.
So what do you find hopeful for in the future?
You know, I'm so hopeful of anything and everything now together, because there was a time where we were not able to go outside. Our favorite activity is hunting, fishing, camping, being outdoors, going hiking. And there was 3 years there where we couldn't do anything but stay on the couch and inside together. And now we're able to do it all together. We're able to venture life, and our next goal is to hopefully one day get married and go on our first camping trip again. After 5 years, we're going hiking. We're planning vacations together. We're able to remodel our home and do so many fun things that we weren't able to do together. And I have the life put back in me and in Adam that right now we say, what do you want to do today? And we're able to do it together.
I love this one. Tough journey for Adam and Stacey. You know, I'm so thankful they shared their story with us. It's so important, and to know that the struggle. And but what a great end to a difficult time in their lives. You know, even through those ups and downs, and making those tough decisions. Um, it's hard for me to hear how isolated they were before Adam's transplant. I mean, it just broke my heart a little bit, you know. Just I feel like the CF is isolating enough as it is, and then just going through that was hard to hear. I loved hearing their plans for the future and how hopeful they were, and you know, you could see it through them. I just loved it. Elizabeth, you know, as you're a person with CF who's married, what resonates with you about Stacey and Adam's story?
Yeah, you know, it was really encouraging to me that they found that it was so healthy for them to take time away. Like right now, I'm on the double lung and liver transplant list, and I have to live in Seattle. But my home with my husband is in Anchorage, and he has to still live there so he can work and insurance. And so we really had to try to find a way to reframe this time, so it's not just like, you know, waiting and being apart, but like how can we use this time to really make ourselves just emotionally stronger, and where have we sort of maybe leaned on each other that we maybe would be better if we were a little bit more self-sufficient. It's been, you know, it's been really hard for sure, but it's also been just kind of an odd sort of gift. And just, I know that it's making both of us stronger, and that our relationship, you know, like Stacey said, is going to be even stronger because of this. So yeah, that was, you know, it was really good. So to kind of transition into the next one, we're going to hear from another couple, Nathan and Jessica. Nathan was actually a late diagnosis as well, or not as well as Jacqueline's children. But, you know, one of the great benefits of having him and his wife share their journey is that, you know, because of science and because of the research that the CF Foundation has been doing, our CF's story is expanding to include a lot of people who are being diagnosed later in life. And so, I learned from Nathan that, they've had a hard time finding support and finding people to talk to. And so I was really glad that they're able to share their journey with us, because I know that we have people here who are also late diagnosed, and I hope that, what they share resonates with you guys.
What started us on this journey for this diagnosis? What started us on this journey for this diagnosis?
Well, infertility. We were struck with that, and we tried for several years to have children, and there wasn't anything wrong with me, and come to find out something was wrong with you, and one of your tests came back as being a carrier of cystic fibrosis, and mine did not. So he was confident that we could go forward with the process of having children. And that was the big start of knowing that you were a carrier of cystic fibrosis. We knew what it was, but we didn't think that you had it.
Well, and that was back at that time in 2006, I'd say, is when they started showing that there was the possibility of having side effects from being a carrier. But then as I kept doing my research and on into 2010, 2011, they basically came out and said that they had the atypical side. And paired along with the one I have and the conditions that I had growing up, the CF doctor was confident enough to go ahead and diagnose me as having CF and start, the monitoring process and the different treatments, the sinus surgery that I had.
It was scary finding it out, because I don't know what's going to happen to him in life. And I know that people associate cystic fibrosis with the lungs. And so, yeah, I do think that people might look at me funny for saying my husband has cystic fibrosis, because he was a late diagnosis and hasn't had all of those struggles in life. But he's having struggles now, and it worries me and it bothers me, and I don't have a support group or anybody around to get support from for what he's going through or what I'm going through, and I guess that makes things a little hard sometimes. It'd be nice. I know when he gets on his group calls, I'm very thankful that he found people in the CF community that were accepting of him, and I know it means a lot to him, and I've gotten to meet a few of them. It's been great meeting them online, and one of his friends from the group messaged me quite a few times when he was going through his surgery for his sinuses and stuff, and that was really great. That was good support. To have somebody that you don't know to just reach out was really good. And so I'm thankful that he's gotten support, and it seems to be trickling off to me. So I think as the days and weeks and months pass, that maybe the support side for me will grow and get better. But right now, I guess it's still early for me in all of this, so I'm still processing a lot of it.
Because my diagnosis has only been a year ago.
Yeah, so I'm still processing everything.
I actually found out the 1st of May of 2018, so I found out on the first day of Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month. Thank you, babe, for being there for me and being my support. And I know it's been tough, trying times. I know we've been through a lot through this diagnosis, but somehow we've always managed to stick together.
Yep.
That brought a tear to my eye just hearing Jessica and not feeling having the support, and hopefully she'll find that soon. Oh, and to share a little bit about that story, their IVF was successful, and they do have 13-year-old twin girls, so yay for them. One of the things, that Nathan talked about, and just the advocating for himself. I have to do that so much for Kian, my son, and I feel like he's 13 now, and I'm having to really try to teach him to be an advocate for himself and teach him what to ask for and when to push further, or when something doesn't feel right to question it more, And I just think just trusting your gut and pushing to find the answers. And, I commend Nathan for doing that and knowing something was not right,
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, I got my diagnosis when I was 4 months old, but I think it's been a little bit harder for me to learn how to advocate for myself because I always just kind of had that blanket diagnosis of like, well, it's just CF related, or it just comes with it. And I didn't actually know that certain things maybe were not normal, or to pay attention to certain pain or side effects that I was having. So it hasn't been until like the last few years that I've actually started speaking up, or just like, trying to think of things that maybe I've brushed off, or and my husband is a really great sounding board for that. I can be like, is this normal, or is this, so yeah, but yeah, so learning to advocate for ourselves, whether you're late diagnosis or we're diagnosed young, is just, it's an ongoing process to learn. So I want to transition into our next video. We're going to hear from Megan. She's 38 years old and has CF. A little bit about her is that her mother unfortunately passed away from cancer in 2006. So Megan sat down with her dad and his fiance, Jean, and talked with them about what it's been like for them. And they all live near Boston.
So I remember when I was deciding, my dad wanted me to go to a different college. So I remember when I was deciding, my dad wanted me to go to a different college because it was closer, and he wanted me to live at home and commute, and that was just like not going to happen.
When she applied for school, she applied for mostly schools within the New England region, and she ended up deciding to go to Providence College, was roughly about an hour, an hour and 15 minutes from our home. And I think we had a couple of things that we dealt with. One was a normal experience the parents have when you leave your children. Her mother was crying from the get-go of when we left her. But on the, the medical side, we had felt comfortable that we had things in place. There were support systems that we would rely on. We participated in support groups for families with CF. I think it's important to recognize that when you have a child with a serious illness, it does put a significant amount of stress on the parents' relationship and the way you handle other children. You have, in our case, 2 healthy children and an additional child that had very serious illness. And, you as much as you want to say you want to raise everyone the same, it's just not that way it works out. And, you almost want to set aside times and say, let's make sure my son, as an example, gets the appropriate attention. And I think in various children, they handle it some better than others. But it clearly is something that shows up in the relationship have with other children. From the standpoint of, a relationship between a husband and wife, there's tremendous stress about going to the hospital, all of the emotional aspects of all of those things. And, I know in a lot of cases it's difficult for people to stay together in a relationship where there is a serious and a chronic illness. So I was proud that we were able to do it.
Last summer, I became very sick. I was in and out of the hospital. So that was probably the hardest time, at least for me. Can you guys talk about what that was like for you and how you kind of were able to show up and be so supportive for me with like how scared you probably were as well?
I think one of the things we did was talk about it a lot. We talked to each other about it and got sad together and worried together. And but also both of us have a tendency to lean toward the optimistic side, that this too shall pass and better days were coming. And so we never got totally consumed in the seriousness of it because we believed in the care Megan was getting. I think that's what got us through the summer. But when one person hurts, everybody hurts, and it certainly affected everyone.
And I guess I would also add that she had been in the hospital previously, and she had had cleanouts, and she had gone through periods of time where, she would kind of get knocked down, but she pulled herself up, the medications worked, and she was back on her feet. This time was different. Now we were talking about things like a lung transplant that had never been things that had been on our radar. And any parent would be both troubled and fearful about what does this all mean. And so we tried to kind of hang together as much as we all could. And I mean that the entire family, her brother, her sister, her aunts, her uncles, Jean, her family, all of us together, trying to kind of pull the oar in the same direction to help her get through.
I would be nowhere without my numerous cousins and aunts and uncles. I mean, when like things were really tough this year, my cousin that had lost her sister organized, sent out emails, and they were sending us like gift cards to pay for gas for Miles to come visit me in the hospital. They were arranging like food to be left in a cooler at our house, and then they had like a schedule of which people were coming to check on me during the week. I mean, and then also it's funny because like they'll text me about how I'm doing, and I'm like, well, check on my dad, see how he's doing, and have you talked to my sister, like, because it's very important, like, even though I'm in the midst of it all, like, it's impacting my brother and sister as well. And like when I did the lung transplant testing, Jean actually stayed with me overnight. And having her there as just another spiritual person that could just talk about nothing, talk about the heavy stuff, but just be with me made such a huge, huge impact.
I can't say it was easy in the beginning. It was hard for me to sort of know where my place was. And I think that the things that I love that calm me or help me, it's wonderful that Megan enjoys those same things. So we have that common connection, and it's a different connection than someone that just likes the same food as you or the same artist as you. It's deeper than that. So it's allowed us to kind of overcome, I think, what maybe could have been natural obstacles with a woman coming into the place where her mom should be. It's much better much better now, and I feel honored to be here.
Yeah, I totally resonate with Megan, and just, always looking for it's so great to hear from Megan and her dad and Jean. And I totally resonate when she says, like, are you checking on my dad? Are you checking on my husband? Are you, because yeah, it's like if they're not okay, then I can't really be okay, and I can't really do anything to help them. So I really rely on the support of my community. And how did you resonate with what Kevin was saying, Lynda?
So I resonated a lot with what he was saying. It is really difficult parenting each child the same, and that's your intention and that's what you try to do, but it's really difficult to do so. It's like Kian's going to eat all the fatty foods, and Patrick wants the fatty foods, but he needs to eat healthy. I mean, those are just small things, but there's also, tying your shoes for Kian was a big deal. He just didn't want to tie his shoes. So why are we going to argue about tying shoes? Let's get treatments done and whatever. And, just those small things are different when I'm dealing with my son, Patrick, who doesn't have CF, and there's a lot. It's just very different, as much as we wanted to keep it the same. And then, I do worry a lot about enough time for Patrick, and he's just great. I say he was given to me first because he was, an easy baby and all that. But it is hard. It's not an intentional thing that you're not paying attention to them. You're just so busy. Kian was very sick the first few years. We had 6 hospitalizations the first year, 6 the second year, I think 4 or 5 the third year. And so there's a lot of times that I was being pulled out of, the house and being in the hospital for a week or so. And the times he saw me was when Pat brought him in the evening. So it was hard. It was hard for him. It was hard for us to figure that out. We have a really close relationship, and we just have to talk a lot, and just, when there's times when I know he's not great, I just have to check in with him, and we got to have those difficult, like, what do you need? What are you not getting from me,
Totally.
And the other thing was, like, how tough marriage is tough by itself, right? And then when you add in CF, it just adds another component. Ian, like, just for an example, just as stressor was, Ian got a feeding tube when he was about 5 months old. And I'll never forget Pat and I just arguing about the smallest things, but it just was built up from all the stressors of being in the hospital, having surgery, and then coming home, trying to figure out a machine and dealing with the enzymes and how that all worked. And so, it was tough. It was tough at the time. And then you figure out a new way of working together, and we really are a team, and we have to be a team. We both work full time, and so we figured it out, and you just have to find the new path. So
yeah, and it's so important, and kind of just to call back to what Adam and Stacy were talking about, of just kind of like how you deal with stress together is a really important thing to learn and understand about your partner, and even probably your kids too. Like, everybody deals with stress in their own way. Thankfully, our next video is between siblings. So Anna who's the co-chair, Anna McVeigh Tyson, and her younger brother, Zach, sat down and had a conversation. What is unique about their story? Anna has 2 kids, Lily and Liam, who are 10 and 6. And Anna had to recently make the tough decision to leave their home in Colorado and move back in with her parents in Kansas. So she has her kids during the summer, and that's part of the story and what they talk about. And also, just to kind of clarify, Anna and Zach have another sister with CF, and then their other sister, there's 4 total, has type 1 diabetes.
Well, from my perspective, I don't know. It's just something that's always been there. They brought it up. They never tried to hide it, just make it out to be what it is. It's something that's awful, but it's something that you have to live with, and it's better to do your best to live your best life. So I guess basically, even though like life puts you down, keep going, keep your head up.
Yeah, that's just kind of how our parents approach life, though. I feel like, I mean, the sister Mandy has type 1 diabetes, and Amy has CF too, just like me. And so it's like we had 3 out of the 4 of us had some kind of chronic illness, and then your birth was not that easy either.
Yeah.
So, like, you were a preemie, so that was kind of hard. It's just, my parents have just kind of learned to take things in stride, and you face them as they come, and you try to live your life the best that you can.
The dynamic, it's kind of interesting. I mean, with being the youngest, and since I didn't need the constant attention because my health was a lot better, I had to grow up to be a bit more resilient.
What
Okay, the way that I had to become more resilient is that quite often the youngest kid is just babied throughout their entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, I got that somewhat, but with my sisters constantly going to the hospital for 1 to 2 week stays, I had to become a little bit more resilient in the fact that I had to, I guess, learn a bit more things on my own, do things more on my own, because I guess one of the byproducts is that I just had less attention from my parents because it was going towards you and Amy because, well, obviously you have CF and I don't. The worst thing I have is unathletic ability and glasses.
Yeah, they weren't as concerned about those issues.
Yeah. And I'd be the same way as a parent.
So you had to rely on yourself.
A bit
a
more.
Lot more. Yeah, I can see that. So is there a time that stands out to you between us that really is meaningful?
Probably whenever you had to move back here when I was a senior, mostly because up to there I had been able to get along with you and talk with you, but I wasn't able to actually talk with you and enjoy you as a person again, because that was about the time I started to really analyze things and realize them, like how the seriousness of CF and everything.
Well, and I'd always had Lily and Liam with me too. So I was always a mom first and not really able to relate to you as just your sister, I think. But I think that was really impactful. Like, that was one bright spot for me about moving back home, was that you and I could bond. And I know it was hard because I was moving back because of my health, but I moved out of the house when
I was 6 or
you were 6.
7.
Yeah, and so, I mean, we were so far apart in age that is a million miles away from each other, like being able to relate. But I think that once you were old enough and I was, an adult, we were both pretty much adults, we could relate more on the same level.
Yeah, it's easier for a 29-year-old or...
It was 30.
Okay, it's easier for a 30 and a 19 or 18-year-old to talk as opposed to a 19-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, and it's kind of ironic, too, because I don't think we would be as close as we are now if my health hadn't declined, because I would have had no reason to move back home. So I guess there's a few other questions that I have, which are tied into my health, but, just kind of like as my little brother Do you ever worry about Lily and Liam and like how it affects them? Or do you see like as their uncle how CF affects them? I worry about that a lot. It's on my mind a lot. So I just always wonder like what the rest of our family thinks about how CF impacts Lily and Liam.
I just want you to at least be able to have your health in line long enough to at least see them graduate. Because one of the more morbid things is that it's possible that I could live all three of my sisters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess the main thing is I just hope that by chance that if you do die at a young age that I'd still be able to see my niece and nephew. Yeah. And that they won't have any resentment towards you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things that do happen to you are completely out of your control.
I actually look forward to being an aunt to your kids. I know that's probably way down the line, but you're probably the only other person who's going to have kids. And so it'll be really exciting for me to see little yous.
Well, I haven't thought that far ahead.
I have, obviously.
I'm just thinking about getting through my next semester of school.
Yeah.
I take life whenever it just comes at me.
Yeah. Well, is there anything like tomorrow or this evening that you're looking forward to?
Game of Thrones.
We're going to watch Game of Thrones together.
Maybe we'll find some stupid movie to watch together.
Yes.
That's one of the things we enjoy. Sometimes I'll get a game or a series that we'll watch or play together. Yeah, continuing just to do stupid small stuff that's not really stupid, but...
Well, but that's how we bond. Like, that's the kind of stuff we like to watch together. Just random stuff. Well, I'm glad you've been honest with me and told me how you feel and stuff. That means a lot. Yeah. Because I don't think we've talked about this specific topic very, very much. Because there's other things we like to talk about, but...
Yeah, it's usually the small, petty, day-to-day life stuff.
Yeah. But it's good to have these conversations every once in a while. Thanks. I love you.
Me too.
Aww.
Aw, so great. I totally resonate. When a couple years ago, my sister, who's 10 years younger than me, moved back to Anchorage, and I was in the hospital the first couple of weeks she was there. And it was the first time we lived in the same town since I got married, so 12 years. And she just would come every day and bring coffee, and we'd curl up and watch movies, and it was just the very, very best thing. And when I do my breathing treatments, I tell them, okay, it's your time to talk to me. So it's like our bonding time, but I do appreciate how available like being sick sometimes makes me. So real quick, the last video, we're gonna actually hear from a child of a CF parent. Melissa Schiffman has CF, and we're gonna hear from her daughter Chloe about what her experience is. So enjoy.
So one of my favorite things to do with my mom, which sounds really lame, but it's actually really fun, is when we go for drives to like grocery shopping, and like we go to Whole Foods and we get figs and we play Billy Joel in the car, and you let me pick the music, and then you complain that you're not going to listen to a podcast, but we really know that my music is superior because my music's amazing. And it's really, really fun. And like normally kids are like, oh, I don't want to go grocery shopping with my parents, and I'm like, yo, we're gonna get some things. We're gonna argue about podcasts. We can talk.
We're gonna argue about Billy Joel, cause.
How dare you?
What else do we like to do?
I like to talk to, like, when I get home from school and stuff. It's really fun to just like, or not really necessarily fun, but like just like a good thing to like be able to like talk to you about like how my day went and like how I'm feeling, like what mental headspace I'm in, and like if things were really, really awesome and things were really, really not. And it's great because you really want to listen to me, which is awesome, and like I really value your opinion because like you're smart even though you're not as funny as me, and it's an ongoing argument. I'm funnier, but yeah, I love spending time with
Do you think about me having cystic fibrosis?
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
It was more like the last like year, 2 years when I was like, oh, hey, so my mom has a thing that's like not ideal, and that's not ideal. It's a very not ideal situation. I want my mom to last forever.
So do you see any positives of my having cystic fibrosis?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I feel like you having CF has kind of put stuff into perspective. Like, we're gonna grow up, we're not gonna have our parents forever, and while we're still like living like as like teenagers in our house with our parents, we might like, this is the ideal time to like form very strong relationships with our parents, and I feel like I can skip most of the being rude for no reason other than to be rude, because it's taught me how to value time with the people that I care about.
Aww.
And like how to, you know, like maximize the time we have and make it super valuable, because like I'm gonna move out and like maybe complications will come up because of CF. I'm not gonna waste time with the people that I love being just a bratty teenager for no reason. You know, I'm gonna cherish our relationship and make it strong, because that's what I want. Yeah.
So you know that I've done like a lot of volunteering with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, like advocacy and BriefCon, and so I've been wanting you to do Teen Advocacy Day for a while, and unfortunately this year you can't because you're going to camp. But do you see yourself doing anything like that in the future?
Well, if I'm going to be working as an intern with CF stuff next year, I will maybe possibly get invited to more like CF events, which I would love to go to because they're really interesting, and you can't always go because like you have CF and someone else has CF. And yeah, I would really love to do that.
Chloe, thank you for talking to me about this. I know it's not always easy to talk about my having cystic fibrosis, but I think it's great that you're able to share your feelings with me about this kind of thing, especially as you get older, and it's good to keep an open dialogue.
This interview's fun because it's like, hey, suckers, I love my mom. Nice. Yeah. Thanks.
So you want to wrap us up, Lynda? I know we only have a few minutes left.
Sure thing. I love that one. That was cute. Patrick has actually gone to Teen Advocacy Day last year, and he's going again this year. So cool. I hope she gets to go. So we wanted to, highlight some resources that could be useful to any of you, friends, family, spouse, persons with CF, to connect and find support. So Project CF Spouse, Attain Health, CF Peer Connect, getting involved in advocacy work or other volunteer opportunities. When you go to the resource room, you can actually find some of those there. But no matter what your connection, there's something out there for everybody. And sometimes it's just about the right time for you too. So stop by the resource room and you'll learn more about what's available for you and what your support system looks like. The benefit of these connections, even though sometimes it's hard to open up, is I think the connections outweigh the risk. So I just want to say thank you all to all the speakers for sharing their open and honest conversations with us. And thank you, Elizabeth, for leading this production. You did an amazing job. It's so cool. And a special thanks to Elizabeth's sister-in-law, Jenna Amber, who edited all the videos for us. She did a great job and worked endlessly on it. So thank you, Jenna. Thanks to everybody for watching. We hope this empowers you to have the same kinds of open conversations in your breakout sessions today. Don't forget to take a look at the personal agenda email to you and head to your next session, starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 p.m. Central Time, 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone. See you soon.